And when the Logan Lerman Renaissance inevitably happens, what then, right? Like, what then? Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be ranking book to TV/movie adaptations. I've been wanting to do this video for such a long time. I was originally planning on doing it in the summer, but then the strike happened. And today I wanted to do another ranking video, and I thought, why not now? This is going to be me ranking screen adaptations that I have watched based on books that I have at least read some of. So if you're wondering why something like Lord of the Rings isn't going to be in this ranking, it's because I've watched all the movies, but I have not touched any of the books. But you know, maybe I will, and if this video gets enough love, I'll do a part 2. So for this ranking video, I have 5 tiers, and at the top is graduated film school from the University of Huntington with a PhD in serving. If you don't know what this means, congratulations, you are not chronically online. There is like no good way for me to explain it. If you know, you know. The second tier is Okay Pookie, and this is for the fairly decent, the solid adaptations, but the ones that just like weren't my favorite. But they're still good, they're still enjoyable, I don't think they're bad at all. Third is We've Lost the Plot, and this tier is for the adaptations that just weren't for me no matter how much I tried. Either that or it had problems with it and I just didn't enjoy it enough for me to overlook those problems. Fourth is The Power of Lady Gaga Compels You. Moving on. And at the bottom is whitecrustydog.jpg, and this is in reference to this picture right here. This tier is for the adaptations that I feel personally victimized by. And first, I'm going to rank none other than the Twilight series. I have not read all the books, but I know what happens. Trust, don't hate me, please. As much as the movies aren't like good, they are really iconic. And I think the movies are better than the books in the sense that we're not in Bella's head as much. Whereas I felt like getting through the books was a little tough because we're in Bella's head more and she just sometimes gives nothing. Like throwback to when I made a video psychoanalyzing Bella Swan based on her taste in movies, and I tried to go through the first book to see where she laughed at all, and she only laughed like 9 times. 7 out of 9 times was just like laughing at herself. But the movies are so iconic, they had such an impact on the culture, there are iconic scenes, iconic actors, iconic lines, an iconic soundtrack. When you watch them from an angle of like, oh, this is camp, like call me a little loca, but I think they're really good. Like, I don't know if this makes sense, but like the books aren't that good, the movies also aren't that good, but the movies embraced camp and is therefore far more enjoyable as a form of media to consume. They define looking camp dead in the eye. Looking camp dead in the eye is in fact a reference to when Karlie Kloss posted a picture on the day of the Met Gala looking into her compact makeup mirror with the caption looking camp dead in the eye, just for her to pull up in a basic cocktail dress. Yeah, so Karlie Kloss didn't invent that, Robert Pattinson did when Catherine Hardwicke went take 5 and he heard change lives and he had to deliver the line hold on tight spider monkey. So this is going at the top. So the next adaptation is Eragon. This might be a little less well known because I haven't seen as much people talking about it on the internet, but it is like a middle grade fantasy series. So this movie is based on a book by Christopher Paolini, and it's about this guy named Eragon. He finds a dragon egg and then he finds out he's a dragon rider, learns stuff about his lineage, has to defeat this evil king. So the thing about this book is that I did think the book was like okay as a kid. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it. It is like storming outside and the thunder just shook my house. Oh my god. I do remember reading this book in like late elementary school or early middle school and my English teacher being like, "Are you reading Eragon?" And me being like, "Yes." And then she was like, "That series by that one high school kid?" And I was like, yes. There was some judgment going on there. The movie adaptation though, atrocious. It was so bad, and it's really because every single element of the movie fell flat and it really embodies go girl give us nothing. It not only deviated so much from the books but also just lacked in all aspects. The only redeemable thing I think was a part of this movie was Jeremy Irons' acting, because let's be so for real, it's Jeremy Irons. So yeah, because I feel personally victimized by this movie, I'm gonna have to put that at the bottom. Next is of course the Hunger Games series. I read all of the books, I watched all of the movies. I'm a fan of both overall, and I do think that the books were better than the movies, but honestly the movies were pretty solid adaptations of the books. They had an incredible cast. Like out the gate they had 22-year-old Oscar winner Jennifer Lawrence as the lead. She really did not leave a single crumb for us, and this was the best we got out of the dystopian YA sci-fi cinema era, so I think this goes at the top. However, the prequel I have a slightly different opinion on. So the prequel is called Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It follows Snow. He was the antagonist of the original series, and it basically is kind of like his origin story. I read the book fairly recently because I wanted to read it before I watched the movie, and I watched the movie very recently as well. I thought the book was fine, to be honest. I mean, I still hold the belief that the original series is better. I guess like, a prequel about the abhorrent child-killing oppressive villain would not have been my first pick. Like, I would have been interested in reading a Finnick Odair prequel personally. It's not like it was hard for me to get through this because he's someone I wasn't rooting for. Like, it was interesting to see that he wasn't born a sociopath, to see moments where he does have the capacity to have compassion. But at the same time, it's not something I really wanted or cared for out of a prequel, so I found myself feeling a little drained trying to get through it. I also thought the movie adaptation was also okay. Like, I thought it had a good cast. Rachel Zegler was great as Lucy Greybeard. The thing is, I think the movie does give a little sympathy towards Snow's character, and I know that was intentional, but the fact that we know he becomes a tyrant was just like, I've seen the edits, guys, so for that I'm gonna put it in We've Lost the Plot. Now we have the Percy Jackson movies, starting with Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief. Oh my god. I watched this movie in theaters because I read those books as a kid. I love them as a kid. It's such a great middle grade fantasy series. And I recently revisited the movie for the first time since I was a kid, and it's like hardly an adaptation. It's just so wild how far away they stray from the books. Like, I know there's a bunch of Percy Jackson movie truthers out there saying that if you just think about the movie as its own thing and not as an adaptation, it's actually really good. But we're not here to do that. We're not here to do that as per the title of this video. It's not good. And this is no hate to the actors. It really is just all about the script here. Like, it was genuinely devoid of anything I loved about the books. But at the same time, this movie is so silly goofy. Like, Percy defeating Medusa with his iPod. By the way, Uma Thurman as Medusa and having to deliver the line, "I used to date your daddy." Grover rizzing up all the women in the casino. I'm gonna piss off all the movie fans by saying that the casino scene is not slay. Poker Face by Lady Gaga is slay, and you're conflating the two. Again though, it's so campy, and I've been debating internally over this one to the point where I created a whole other tier in between the third and the last tier just for this movie. Because it's worse than the third tier adaptations, but it's also better than some of the bottom tier adaptations. And when the Logan Lerman Renaissance inevitably happens, what then, right? Like, what then? So the power of Lady Gaga. It compels me. Unfortunately, they made another Percy Jackson movie for the second book adaptation, and they did not course correct. In fact, the one book accurate change that they made was Annabeth's hair, as if that was the thing that mattered most. I know some of you might want to come for me because I put the Twilight movies together, but I'm separating these Percy Jackson movies out, and it's because I feel so differently about these two movies. I have the same overall opinion on the Twilight movies, and I'm only gonna separate them if I really feel differently about them. So I didn't bother to watch the Sea of Monsters movie as a kid, actually, probably because I watched the first one, saw how inaccurate it was, and then just decided not to. So I watched this movie for the first time very, very recently. And this one managed to be like such its own thing that I couldn't even finish it. It's like someone wrote the script based off of a ChatGPT generated summary of the book. There's nothing that can sum up my thoughts quite like this letterboxd review. This is the movie playing on all the televisions in the underworld. So yeah, this is absolutely going at the bottom. Recently though, we got a redo with the Percy Jackson show. A far more book accurate story with age accurate characters and a show no less, so more airtime. Also with the author as one of the creators and major influences on the show. I enjoyed the show overall. I think those kids killed it, and I'm very excited for them because their careers are definitely gonna flourish. I will say they did make a handful of changes from the book, and for some of them I was completely fine with, and for some of them I don't really understand why they did that. I also thought that the writing didn't always support the actors and that we could have gotten longer action sequences. Basically, I do think there is room for improvement for sure, but I did enjoy it overall, and I don't really understand all the book purists online who are very nitpicky, and also all the people that are just coming after the kids in the cast. Like, all things considered, the books will always be number one in my heart, but I enjoyed this adaptation, so I'm gonna put it in the second tier. Now we have the Harry Potter series. I mean, I probably said this so many times on my channel already, but this was the series of my childhood. Like, it was very formative for me. Fuck J.K. Rowling, of course, by the way. Like, Absolutely not with her. As a film series adaptation, I do think it's quite impressive that they did a good job on all the movies. Like 8 movies over 10 years, and not one of them was ever truly bad. Like they range from, okay, I enjoyed that, to really good, and that is genuinely very impressive and tough to pull off. The casting is also so perfect, and dare I say, this is one of the best book-to-screen adaptations I've witnessed, so I'm gonna put that at the top too. Switching things up a little, we've got The Fault in Our Stars. I regret to inform you that if I had a Goodreads in 2013, I would have probably given this 5 stars. However, I repressed so much of this book and the movie because it is not 5 stars at all. It's pretty bad. And the thing is, before I ever really revisited this, I still had the memory from when I was 13 that it was good. Like John Green, he taught me about photosynthesis and Alexander the Great on his YouTube channel. Like, yeah, he's the crash course guy. He probably writes great books. As a movie adaptation, I do think it was pretty faithful, but A, the source material is not good. Like, I will never forget or get over the Anne Frank Museum kiss, but also the dialogue was just like bad. And B, I feel like there were scenes taken out that would have shown more of the characters' inner conflicts, but instead I feel like there was more of an emphasis on the main characters' physical relationship. I mean, yeah, this is bad. This is pretty bad. So it's going at the bottom. Now I'm going to be ranking the Little Women movies, starting with the 1994 adaptation. So before the 2019 Greta Gerwig adaptation of Little Women was the 1994 Gillian Armstrong adaptation of Little Women starring Winona Ryder. Highly recommend you read the book by Louisa May Alcott if you haven't already. This movie was pretty good. It was solid, and I know a lot of people really love Christian Bale in it as Laurie, but personally I could have done without his breathy voice the entire time. And Joe ending up with a middle-aged man, so I'm going to put this one at the second tier, and I want to put the 2019 Little Women movie in the top tier. In a lot of aspects, I don't even feel like one is better than the other. For example, Winona Ryder had such a lovely portrayal of Joe, and I feel like she really did a good job capturing Joe's spirit, but also Saoirse Ronan had such a great performance and brought Joe to life in a different way than Winona Ryder did, but I still loved both of their interpretations. However, I will say I do prefer Timothée Chalamet as Laurie, and I also just really appreciate that Greta Gerwig honored the ending that Louisa May Alcott always wanted for the book. Basically, Louisa wanted Joe to remain unmarried at the end of the book, but she knew it wouldn't be really accepted by audiences at the time because 19th century values made it so that a happy ending for a woman was for her to be married. So Louisa, instead of having Joe end up with Laurie, had Joe end up with an older German professor that she met in New York City, and this was both to please her audience and her publisher to make it more successful. Greta Gerwig in 2019 honored these wishes by having Joe follow through on her dreams and ambitions as a writer and having her stay unmarried, and I love that, so I'm gonna put that one at the top. Next is The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I specifically read and saw the first installment of this series, so that's the only one I'm gonna be ranking here. I read the book once when I was younger, and I don't think I've ever revisited it, and it's not because it's bad, I think it just wasn't something I loved, but it definitely was a good read as a kid. It was engaging, it was fun. I've seen the movie a couple times over the years, and that's also a solid adaptation. It's just really long, but again, wasn't my favorite, so I feel like okay, Pookie is the way to go. And now, of course, we have the Divergent series. Oh girl, I read this when I was younger. I didn't like it. Also watched the movies, didn't like them. It didn't make sense to me. Like I mentioned this in my last ranking video for 2014 pop culture moments, but the premise just didn't make sense to me because the factions sounded so similar. But also again, why would anyone structure civilization like this? Like this isn't how they separate kids in school. This is how they structure their entire society. There was also nothing memorable to me about the books or the movies. The only thing that stands out in my memory is that Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort played siblings in this movie, but then played a couple in The Fault in Our Stars in like the same year. And God, the first movie was like slightly better than the other movies because the other movies were even worse. Actually, they were so bad that the very last movie didn't even come out. Like that itself warrants the bottom tier. Like nothing on this list of adaptations has been that bad that they couldn't even finish the entire series. That's a lie. That's a lie. I said that out loud and my brain went, no girl, the Percy Jackson movies, they were also cut short. But I do think if it's that bad, it has to go at the bottom. Like it's not even an unserious fun watch. Like there's nothing iconic in it, like the baseball scene from Twilight. There's no iconic funny line that people still quote to this day. And it really did kill the dystopian YA genre, so yeah, bottom. And now I'm gonna rank The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I love this book and I love this movie. If you watched my last video where I recommended movies based on your MBTI, I did recommend this movie for INFJ INFJs because I am an INFJ. I don't remember a lot about the book, at least not enough for me to say whether it's better than the movies because it has been a hot minute. However, I do love both. And I come back to the movie a lot because it just provides me this inexplicable catharsis. Plus, I have so much respect for Logan Lerman's performance. Like, he absolutely got a PhD in serving. To be giving us both Charlie and Percy in the early 2010s, a very formative time in my life, is probably too dramatic to call it the Lord's work, but I think it approaches that, so that's some top tier material. Next is 13 Reasons Why. This was terrible. I very much did not like the book, very much did not like the show. I not only watched the first 2 seasons of the show, but I watched the unedited version of season 1. So if you don't know, this book and this show has to have many trigger warnings, and there was this very explicit graphic sequence in the show that was originally aired, but it got so much backlash that Netflix's editors had to go in and cut that out and edit that sequence. So now if you go and watch it, a lot of it is cut out, but I was one of those people that watched what it originally was, and oh my god. It's just so bad, genuinely harmful. I discourage anyone from watching that show, so that is going at the bottom. Next, I'm ranking the After series. I really debated whether I should rank this because technically I've only read part of the first book and it was really out of curiosity. Like, I've read a little bit, but like not a lot of it. So this may be cheating a little here, but you know, live, laugh, love, as they say. At the bottom so far, we have Eragon, Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters, Divergent, and 13 Reasons Why. Like, 2 things I had high hopes for, but were massive letdowns, and then 2 things that are just so bad, and the source material is bad, and it's not even something you can really consume, thinking that it's like for the shits and giggles. No, but like, After was something that most people went into thinking it was going to be bad because the source material was from Wattpad. Not to say that fanfiction is bad or to shame anyone, by the way, I just think that people are going to have very different expectations of an adaptation based off of a Harry Styles fanfiction versus a published novel. But it ended up being such an unserious series. It feels like most people are just watching it because it's like fun to watch something bad rather than actually be invested in Tessa and Hardin's relationship. Like, the fact that the actor who plays Hardin is also the actor who plays young Tom Riddle in Harry Potter is camp. Him finding Dylan Sprouse in the bathroom, kicking down the door and going, "Fucking Trevor," that is cinema. But then again, that is only 5 minutes out of the 120 minutes of screen time. There are just too many movies in this series, so actually it belongs at the bottom. Now I'm gonna rank the To All the Boys I Loved Before movies, starting with the first one. This book/movie is cute, it's fun. There's nothing bad or harmful in it, and I know that is such a low bar. It's the one rom-com role I like of Noah Centineo's because Sierra Burgess is a Loser was oh so bad, and Perfect Date was also oh so bad, but this one was better. In terms of movie changes, I like some, I don't like some others. Like in the book, I think Peter wants to fake date Lara Jean to prove to his ex that he's over her, not to make her jealous to win her back. Also, if I remember correctly, book Lara Jean had a lot more different hobbies. But what I do like about the movies is that there are more scenes where Peter and Lara Jean connect, and also Lara Jean has a stronger support network. So I think it is a solid adaptation, not one of my favorites. It's not bad by any means, but I'm gonna put it in the second tier for that. I am, however, separating this movie from the other 2 because I feel like the other 2 were worse. John Ambrose McLaren just really seemed like a more compatible match in the book and especially in the movie. Like, the more you watch, the more you realize that Peter's just reaching the bare minimum. And he plagiarized Edgar Allan Poe. Also, the conflicts in the other 2 books/movies just isn't as interesting to me, but you know, it's not terrible, so this is gonna go and We Lost the Plot. Next is Jenny Han's other series, The Summer I Turned Pretty, starting with season 1. I think season 1 of the show is better than book 1. I think it is better. I don't know if this is a controversial opinion because I'm not really in the Jenny Han cinematic universe fandom, but to go over the major changes between the book and the show, basically the both of them start out with Belly, her brother, and her mom going to her mom's best friend's summer beach house. And her mom's best friend has these 2 sons, Jeremiah and Conrad. And basically in the show, in season 1, she goes through the summer navigating her feelings with these 2 boys, but she also meets Cam Cameron, who's this other guy, but she's also preparing for the debutante ball and navigating conflicts with her best friend. But in the book, there is no debutante ball. Also, her best friend Taylor isn't in it as much. So basically in the book, she's going on these dates with Cameron and also trying to figure out how she feels about Conrad and Jeremiah. And I just feel like the show had a lot more going on for Belly, but also a lot more different things going on for her, which I prefer. Also with the show, like The Summer I Turned Pretty, I feel like vibes matter a lot, and they really did a good job capturing really good vibes for the show. It's just a really chill, fun New England summer vibe that I really think comes through more in the show than it does in the book. Also, I think the characters are more likable in the show. I like that Belly's talking to people that are not just teenage boys. I like that they gave more screen time to the mothers, and the acting is just really good in the show, so I think it's a solid adaptation. I'm gonna put that in the second tier. Season 2 though is like kind of where I lost the plot. So a secret throughout book 1/season 1 is that Jeremiah and Conrad's mother Susanna has cancer. This gets revealed at the end of season 1/book 1, and then when book 2/season 2 starts, Susanna has already passed away. But also Belly and Conrad are broken up. They broke up a month before his mom passed, and the events of season 2 take place no more than like 2 or 3 months after Susanna passes, and it's wild. I liked how they went back and forth in time because I feel like that was really engaging storytelling, but also the timeline is wild because when they broke up, it was at prom, and it was because Conrad couldn't really show up as a boyfriend for Belly, but it was like, yeah, I kind of understand that. She and Conrad also fight at his mom's funeral where she tells him to go to hell, which is also wild. She and Jeremiah get together at the end of season 2, so that's only like, again, 2 or 3 months after Susanna passed. Not to say that Conrad isn't on his bullshit, like he absolutely is. But I don't like the love triangle. I'm just a little indifferent, but the sheer timeline, I have lost the damn plot. There are also like a handful of changes, like Jeremiah and Conrad having an aunt and a cousin who end up being a big part of season 2. Don't get me wrong, the actors showed up to set like they had rent due the next day, but the events of season 2, oh my. So I am going to put that in We've Lost the Plot. Second to last is Paper Towns. This is the one other John Green book that I have read, and I don't like it. I didn't like it when I first read it, and I don't like the movie. It's basically about a guy who goes on this quest to find his neighbor / unrequited love because she disappears and leaves him clues for him to find her. So already it's like, what is the plot? I think I just don't like the way that John Green writes romances. Like the main guy Q, he's like in love with this girl that he doesn't even know, and Margot, the girl who runs away, we don't even really get a clear sense of why she ran away. Like there's no trouble going on at home. Also, she's just a character that's very hard to empathize with. And all of these problems translated onto the screen, like I don't really feel like Cara Delevingne embodied Margot that well. I think John Green was trying to do something interesting about how all these people in Margot's life have such different idealized versions of who she is, but it's not really like who she is. And the more we learn about Margot, the more we learn how complex she is as a person. But like, I don't know if this is really done well. Also, I don't like any of the characters, so it's just really hard to enjoy, so I'm gonna put that at the bottom. Lastly, we have Normal People, and this is a book by Sally Rooney turned into a TV show starring Daisy Edgar Jones and Paul Mescal. I am going to get hate crimed for this opinion. It was not really for me. Sally Rooney's writing just isn't for me. I'm not a Sally Rooney girly. I tried with Normal People. I tried with Conversations with Friends. I tried. I enjoyed the show more than the book for sure. However, I do still think that the show was okay. I found it to be more emotional than the book. I also do relate to a lot of what the characters go through, but I don't think that I connected with it enough. I know there are criticisms that Marianne and Connell have a toxic relationship, and I don't believe that, but I do personally have a frustration watching them just not properly communicate. And of course, there are other aspects that people love and say make the show great, but personally, I think it just wasn't for me, so I'm gonna stick it in the middle. And that concludes my ranking, maybe part 1 on book to screen adaptations. Wow, the way that a third of these adaptations were put at the very bottom. I guess I'm a harsh critic, or maybe I managed to consume terrible book to screen adaptations, I don't know. Let me know how you guys feel about these book to screen adaptations in the comments. I know some of you will agree, I know many of you might disagree with me, but I hope you had fun watching this video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already.